when I gave the word. Now in the morning I sleep alone. Sweep the streets I used to own. I used to roll the dice, feel the fear in my enemy's eyes, listen as the crowd would sing. Now the old king is dead, long live the king. One minute I held the key, next the walls were closed on me, and I discovered that my castle stand upon pillars of salt and pillars of sand.
Become a highlight of the hockey season here in the state of New Hampshire, and that is the annual inductions into the Legends of Hockey. Some people call it the Berlin Alumni Meeting, but nonetheless, it's a great night for our afternoon for everybody to get together. At this time, I'd like to introduce the president of our organization, Tom Champagne, who will offer welcoming comments. Tom?
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our 2010 induction ceremony. It's amazing to stand up here and see this many people at this event. This is our 9th annual. I think this is our largest crowd to date, with about 320 people here today. So thank you all for being here. I have to admit, I was a bit nervous before coming up here to speak, and I happened to be talking to Pierre Belanger before, and he said, I've got some advice for you. Be brief and don't screw up. I'll be brief. I can't promise the other part. First, I'd like to congratulate this year's inductees, thank them for their contributions to hockey in New Hampshire, and I want to thank their family and friends that are here today to help celebrate this very significant event. I also want to welcome the former players of the original Manchester Monarchs that played in the 70s. They're here today as well, and we'll introduce some of those players later, but we want to thank all of you for being here today. To begin, I wanted to thank Bob Norton for agreeing to be our MC. If you had been to one of our prior events, Jamie Staten from MUR had been the MC of the first 8. He had a previous engagement out of state, wasn't able to make it. We were very fortunate to have Bob Norton make it here today and agree to be our MC, and we really want to thank him for that. As many of you know, Bob Norton was inducted last year under the media category. As part of our appreciation, we did want to give Bob a gift today, and if you happen to go to the Monarchs game last night, as in previous events, they wore retro jerseys honoring the team that was being honored this year, in this case, the original Manchester Monarchs. So if you can see the mannequin up here with the original jersey, it's what they wore last night at the Monarchs game, and the Monarchs won 7-2. They did a great job, and it was a lot of fun because many of the inductees were introduced and were on the ice prior to the game, so that was a great event. But I do want to give Bob a token of our appreciation here as we begin. Bob? There's a few other folks I wanted to recognize today, some special guests that we have that we'll be hearing from a couple of them. The first one is somebody who is an honorary member of the New Hampshire Legends of Hockey. He also is familiar with being in a Hall of Fame. Earlier this year was inducted into the UNH Football Hall of Fame, and he also happens to be State Senator, Senator Lou D'Alessandro. He is with us today. I think also at that table is also a former board member, and we'll be saying in the invocation today, as well as recognizing 2 of our board members and inductees who passed away this past year, but Father Robert Marchand. If you're familiar with the New Hampshire Legends of Hockey, you'll also know that we've had a partnership and support of the Monarchs, the AHL team, and we really have to thank them for a great deal of our success. They've been a great partner. They've had special games that we've been involved with, wearing of the jerseys, and we continue to look for that partnership. And representing the Monarchs today at my table is Ryan Shelton and Aaron Bradley. If you two gentlemen could please stand. If you're not familiar with the Legends, we are a 501(c) nonprofit organization, and we've been here for 10 years. Our mission is really to preserve and celebrate the rich history of hockey here in New Hampshire. And as you know, there's a great deal of history here, starting with the actual origins of the sport in the United States at St. Paul's School. And our history includes legendary like Hobie Baker, Doug Everett, and others, and great teams like the Maroons, Sacred Heart, the Olympics, the Blackhawks, and I know there's a lot of other teams in there, but that's just a few of the teams that are part of this great history. One of our other big events is our golf event, which we have during the summer. It's we sell out, or we have the last few years. It's very popular, and it's primarily a fundraiser. You know, this event is really our premier event. This is really what we're all about, and that's celebrating those individuals that have made a substantial contribution to the game of hockey in New Hampshire. And so that's why we're really here today. Whether it's as a player, the media, builder, officials, we want to recognize those people that have made a significant contribution. Today's event could not happen without some very loyal supporters. You'll see on some of the banners, some of those supporters today. I did want to point out our title sponsors, Vachon Cloutier and Company, and Corvo Routhier. But also, if you could look in your program guide, there is a listing of all those sponsors. We had another sponsor that listed the bronze sponsors. Unfortunately, we cannot find the banner. So if you could look, I just ask that you look, you know, if there's any way that you could support those sponsors that sponsor us and support us, we would appreciate that. The other thing about the board of directors, or the New Hampshire Legends of Hockey, is that other than the executive director position, we are an entirely all-volunteer organization. We have a great board of directors. You know, we do everything in terms of putting this event together, and this is really almost a full year in the making. From the beginning, soliciting packages for consideration for induction, to reviewing and voting on those packages, as well as planning this event. It takes a great deal of work. Most of our board was here this morning at 8 o'clock, setting up. They'll be here at the end, taking down. And at this time, I'd like to ask all the current board members if you could please stand and be recognized. You know, in addition, there is one person that is really kind of at the center of both the golf event and this event. And if you've been involved at all or been on the receiving end of one of his 800 emails, you would know that Jim Hayes, our executive director, really pulls this all together. He puts in, you know, countless hours. I've been over his house prior to the golf outing, and it's just filled with items for the golf event. We take over his house with materials, and at this time, I'd like to have Jim Hayes stand up and be recognized as well. And just to wrap up, I just wanted to tell you a little bit about our organization, give you a little bit of an update. Initially, early on, the thought was that we would have a permanent museum, a mortar and bricks location. But the reality pretty early on hit us that something like that is very expensive. you're going to spend all your time fundraising, and even then, it really wasn't practical. So we really kind of took a different tact in terms of how to preserve the artifacts and photographs and newspaper clippings and equipment. And what we have right now is a online museum or a website. If you haven't been out there, we're going to be showing it up over here on the right. I don't know if we can dim the lights a little bit. Can you see that? But if you haven't been out to our website, there's a lot of information. We talk about our organization. If you're interested to become a member, we tell you how to do that. There's information on past inductees. They're all listed in there with bios. And the thing that we've been working on probably for the last year and a half, is our online museum. And what we have up here right now is some photos. And ended up being a much bigger task than we thought. We actually have somebody on our board that is a professional photographer, and that's Mark Bogaz. He has his business up in Concord. And he has spent many hours photographing these items. We have thousands of photographs. Now we're inputting the information that ties, so you'll be able to search on, whether it's teams or players or decades. There's a lot of information there. And what I'd like to recognize Mark Bogaz, if he could stand up as well, because he's up in the back up there. The photographs, as I said, thousands. Something that we probably could never afford to do, or it would take us years to be able to do it. So the museum piece of it is still in works. I would suspect in the next couple of weeks we'll have it up. If you have some items that you want to either loan us or donate, we welcome those. There'll be a lot of information on there, so that's something to look for. And on your table, there should be a listing. If you're not already on our newsletter distribution list and you want to be, there is a sheet that you can put your name on there, and we'll make sure that as we have updates out there, we'll make you aware of them. In addition to the online museum and the website, we also have displays that we can move around to different locations. We currently have one at the Verizon Center. There's one here in Manchester at Skater's Edge. I know there's one in the North Country. We've had one at the State House. If you see one, we try to tailor the information for that particular geographic area, but they're a great thing. We had them built. We can move them around. If somebody has a business, they would like to have one in their location, please see us. And that's really my piece of this. At this time, I would like to welcome up to the podium Father Marchand to say the invocation. And I just want to thank you all again for being here today. I know we've got a great event in store for you, and it's great to have friends and family and former fans and teammates and line mates here, and maybe a few opponents. And this is just a great event, and I appreciate you all being here. So thank you.
Well, we begin by thanking Almighty God for what we have, our life, our happiness, our hockey, the men and women who make it up, and we ask Him to bless us today at this very happy occasion, as persons who give speeches very often say. I'd like to thank all of you who perhaps thought, perhaps we'll go, perhaps we won't, but made the decision to come here and celebrate the way that we are used to celebrate hockey players and those associated with hockey. I'd like to thank all persons who participate in hockey in any sense of the word, and especially those who are going to be honored today in receiving this award, which proves that they really mean it and that we mean it also when we speak passionately of hockey as a sport. I'd like to recognize two persons whom we lost during this past year. The first one is Mr. Athlete himself, that is Al Adams. Unfortunately, died this year. We pray for him. We ask you to remember him in just a few minutes that we will spend in silence in his memory. We also recognize this year Karl Langlais, another great athlete who was at Notre Dame and many other places, a very great man, both men gentlemen of the First Order. Let's memorialize and remember Karl Langlais in a few minutes of your time. We ask Almighty God to bless the food that is prepared for us, the food that will be our benefit, the food that you ate already in the salad, and the salad will also be blessed in your stomachs. We thank God Almighty. God bless you all, and have a happy meeting today.
Father Marchand always gives terrific invocations, always around the theme of God loves hockey. I'd like to, I know a number of people have been introduced. There's one person out in the audience I would like to introduce. He has a legendary record in the United States as a coach at Clarkson and Boston College, one of the all-time winningest coaches in the history of college hockey, the former head coach at BC and Clarkson. Please stand and be recognized, Coach Zaglarski. Len Zaglarski, Coach. This time we have a special commendation to be read. I'm going to introduce Senator Lou D'Alessandro, who just earlier this year should be congratulated for being inducted into the University of New Hampshire Hall of Fame. So to present commendations, Senator Lou D'Alessandro. Lou.
Well, thank you very much. It's always a pleasure to be introduced by Bob Norton, because you know it'll be a very special event. Brother Norton was a great football coach at the University of New Hampshire, as well as a hockey coach, and a great football player at Rutgers University. You know, it's a very interesting situation for me to come and talk about hockey, having never played hockey, but being involved with Dick Boucher, my neighbor. And I think Bob said it clearly and succinctly. This is Berlin South. Blackie, Rod Blackburn is here. Rod is my classmate at the University of New Hampshire, a great goalie at the University of New Hampshire. And as I said, my classmate, the class of '61, and a member of the University of New Hampshire Hall of Fame. Jimmy Hayes' dad served on the executive council with me. Followed Jimmy's career when he was at New England College. And I said, the best thing you have going for you, Jimmy, is you look just like your mother. And I mean that sincerely, a lovely, lovely, lovely woman. We messed up a little on the proclamation, so Jimmy called me and said, the verbiage isn't quite what it should be, so would you just give a couple of comments about the Monarchs and the history of the Monarchs here in Manchester. The Manchester Monarchs played at the John F. Kennedy Coliseum. The John F. Kennedy Coliseum isn't really quite a coliseum. Those of you that have attended hockey games at the JFK know quite clearly what it is. When I was a high school teacher here in Manchester at Bishop Bradley, we had the origins of our hockey team, and they played at the JFK. JFK has been renovated, and at one time, you may know that the University of New Hampshire, when we were in between rinks, when the Witt was being constructed and when Snively was being reconverted, the university played here in Manchester, played their home games at the John F. Kennedy Coliseum. I remember the original Monarchs. I remember them playing at the JFK. It was in the early 1970s. And in looking through the background, I saw where Harvey Clement and Al Corriveau were involved. And I remember Al Corriveau very well. Most of you remember Corriveau and Routhier, and Al Corriveau just a great citizen in Manchester and a real participant in the city and the city's development. And Corriveau and Routhier, a great company, did good things for our city. Harvey Clement now lives in Goffstown. Harvey was very active politically. So the Monarchs began and were part of the New England League. We were rabid hockey fans here in the city of Manchester. And I think the glory days of Manchester are manifested by the Manchester Blackhawks. And of course, Dickie Boucher, who's my neighbor and who lives across the street from me, I had a radio program in the morning, and Dickie would come across and he'd come on the program and he'd talk about hockey in Manchester and the development of hockey in Manchester and the strength of hockey in Manchester. And Dickie Boucher is a live wire. Aside from being the richest man on St. James Avenue, he is one of the great benefactors of hockey. I always go to Dickie when I'm running for re-election. Dickie, please help me. And he comes through. So that's sort of the way it gravitated in the Queen City. And the Monarchs were sort of like the pivotal program. And these programs kept growing and growing and growing. And amateur hockey became a big thing in New Hampshire. I remember Jimmy and the Concord Budmen, which was again a derivative of the Manchester Monarchs, and their great success. And it was fun going to those games. It's the only hockey game I've ever been at in my life where you never got to sit down. Because if you ever sat down, you missed the whole game, because everybody else was standing up in front of you. We were blessed a number of years ago to have the Verizon Arena built here in the city of Manchester, a really magnificent arena. And along with the arena came the new Manchester Monarchs, a subset of the Los Angeles Kings. And what better place to put a team than in Manchester? And I've read many comments about why Los Angeles located here. And with the distance being 3,000 miles away from your parent organization. But the fact of the matter is that the ability to develop your team, you get more ice time here, and because the travel time in between the teams in the league is limited, you're able to get all of your games in, more practice time in, and the developmental process seems to move nicely, and Los Angeles has continued to keep its teams here in Manchester. So we're very proud of that. We're very proud of the American Hockey League team, but as always, you're very proud of the origins, because everything has to have a beginning, and you must build things on a very solid base. And the love of hockey has manifested itself in New Hampshire and in the city of Manchester on numerous occasions. We've had some great players here. I think of Kangaroo Hebert, who is infamous. His son and my son played together on a junior hockey team over at the West Side Arena. So, and Willie the Baba Bebo. I mean, who could forget Willie Bebo in terms of the history of hockey here in the Queen City? So that, in essence, is my iteration to you. I can't believe the size of the crowd. I see Kenny McKinnon here. He never misses a meal. Kenny, welcome. Great to see you. Kenny was our first real Canadian at the University of New Hampshire, brought down from the Toronto area, and became one of our outstanding players and really helped put the University of New Hampshire teams on the map. And by the way, we have a great team at the University of New Hampshire this year. I was at the Lowell game on Thursday night. We beat Lowell 3-0. And I think for those of you who love amateur hockey, you've got to get out and see the Wildcats. They are the best skating, best passing team that I've seen at the university in a number of years. And we've got a Derry boy who's a star for us, and we're very pleased with that. So I hope everybody has a great American Day. To the inductees, my sincere congratulations. It's an honor that you'll cherish for the rest of your life, because remember, life's all about relationships. These are relationships that you will create a bond with, and many, many thanks for allowing me to be here. I must say my wife came with me, the beautiful and talented Pat D'Alessandro. I don't make a move without her. So thank you very much, everybody. Have a great, great American Day. Take care. Thank you.
Hey, Lou, by the way, I haven't heard many of them, as many of the audience have. No one missed the citation. Thank you. I'd like to, at this time, just recognize a couple of people Lou mentioned. The first All-American in the history of University of New Hampshire from Berlin, Rod Blackburn. Rod, please stand and be recognized. Where's Rod? And I tell you, I know I'm getting old when I did this guy's games when he was a player. So it just sort of time passes, but the head coach of the Dartmouth Big Green, Bobby Gaudette. Bob? At this time, our Executive Director, Jim Hayes, has some presentations, some things to do. Jimmy?
Good afternoon. Thank you all for coming. At this point, we have so many of our previous Hall of Fame members here. I'd just like to recognize them real quickly, ask them each to stand, and please hold your applause to the end. I think we have 23, if I'm not mistaken, Hall of Fame members previous to this year's class. In attendance, Bill Matthews, Bob Norton, our MC, Merrill Fay, Ken McKinnon, Andy St. Laurent, Ron Dubriel, Jacques Leclerc, Ron Peters, Ray Champagne, Willie Bebo, Pierre Belanger, Dick Roy, Didi Villeneuve, Rod Blackburn, Dick Boucher, Bill Antonucci, Leo Gould, Andre Prefontaine, Ben Arguin, Roland Levine, Homer Morin, Rene Leclerc, and John Norman. Thank you, guys. I do apologize. I skipped over one line. Hopefully that's the only line. But U.B. McDonough, Jr., please stand. Bruce Gillies. Jeez, I apologize, Bruce. Mark Bogaz, who was mentioned earlier, collaborated with Jason Bergeron and put together a short video tribute to the Monarchs. Are we ready for that now, Jason? While you're getting that ready, I'd like to introduce the 10 members of the team. Most of them just stood, of the original Monarchs team. And they are Ray Champagne. If you'd stand again and hold your applause. Ray Champagne, Pierre Belanger, Willie Bebo, Bain Donovan, Andy St. Laurent, Jacques Leclerc, Andre Prefontaine, Charlie Morgan, Ron Peters, and Ron Dubriel.
I used to rule the world. Seas would rise when I gave the word. Now in the sound of drums. People couldn't believe what I'd become. And revolutionaries wait for my head on a silver plate, just a puppet on a lonely string. Oh, who would ever want to be king? I hear Jerusalem bells are ringing, Roman cavalry choirs are singing. Be my mirror, my sword and shield, my missionaries in a foreign field. For some reason I can't explain, I know St. Peter won't call my name ever alone this word, but that was when I ruled the world. Hear Jerusalem bells are ringing, Roman cavalry choirs are singing. Be my mirror, my sword and shield, my missionaries in a foreign field. For some reason I can't explain, I know St. Peter won't call my name ever alone this word, but that was when I ruled the world. Hear Jerusalem bells are ringing, Roman cavalry choirs are singing. Be my mirror, my sword and shield, my missionaries in a foreign field. For some reason I can't explain, I know St. Peter won't call my name ever alone this word, but that was when I ruled the world.
With us now is legend of hockey Walter Fournier, another native of Berlin. We have so many natives of Berlin as legends of hockey. And Walter, congratulations to you.
Thank you very much.
We understand that you played for both the Berlin Maroons and Berlin High School at the same time. You must have had quite a schedule.
Way back when, yeah. Back in 1940, I was a sophomore in high school, and that's when I started playing for the Maroons also, yeah.
What position did you play?
Center in the wing,
Oh,
not a defenseman.
not a defenseman. You were a high-scoring center.
Well, I don't know about that, but we used to do pretty well.
Well, I'm sure you did. You're a legend now, so you must have done pretty well.
Yeah.
Now, you also served a stint in the Army, I understand. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I spent 3 years in the Air Corps. Actually, I went into a cadet program, and I wound up a navigator. And I was in the tail end of the World War II, and then I get out and I went back. I really went back to high school again to take a postgraduate course so I could get into the university, which is what happened. Yeah.
Went to UNH, and things were a little bit different then. They didn't have the Whittemore Center back then, did they? No, they didn't even have Snively Arena at that point.
Have either one of them. That's right. We played on open ice, but I was used to it. This was the way it was back home, except we had an arena, at Notre Dame Arena, which was just natural ice. But we depended on the good weather for the games,
And then you had a great career at UNH, and then back to the Berlin Maroons.
I played for the Berlin Maroons during this time while I was in high school, and then when I went to, of course, I had that stint in the in the service, and then I came back and I played for the Maroons again, and then to UNH, which you could play at the time. You could play for both clubs, but I guess today they don't let you do that anymore.
No, that's not allowed today. But
But today,
no, you couldn't. You couldn't with the demands of the schedules.
I don't know how they spend time, how they go to school.
Walter, what did you do for a living?
I've been retired for 23 years, and I'm a civil engineer by education. And my last 22 years I spent in Berlin in the pulp and paper industry.
Well, let's hope they get it back in the North Country.
It doesn't look very good.
Well, we can always hope, right?
Well, I guess we could do that.
Walter Fournier, congratulations, and we really appreciate you being here with us today.
Thank you very much. Yes.
Joining me, legend of hockey, Dick Terrio, another native of Berlin. And as we were saying to Walter Fournier, so many natives of Berlin as legends of hockey, and I guess that was religion up there, Dick.
Yes, it was. I mean, when we started hockey, I started hockey in grammar school. We had an organized team in grammar school, so basketball was definitely out of the question. It was hockey, hockey, hockey. Nothing but hockey.
Hockey, 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 and you were one of the great officials in New Hampshire and New England, East Coast hockey history, officiated over 1,500 games. How did you get into officiating?
Well, actually, it was a high school friend of mine that had moved down here, and we met one day, and he said, Dick, he said, why don't you get into refereeing? I never had thought about it. And then I started in 1972, and I just never ceased. I just loved it and loved it and loved it.
Well, you did have a playing career, obviously, and I think you had to have played the game to be a good official. And tell us about some of the big games that you had over the years.
Well, naturally, growing up in Berlin, playing for Notre Dame High School, we won 18 championships in a row, state championships in a row. I played for them, and then immediately after school, I had an opportunity to go to the University of New Hampshire, but I was just tired of schooling. So I joined the service instead, and I played a little bit in Spain and in Germany. And then when I came back home after the service, then I played at SNU, Southern New Hampshire University, for 4 years. And then at the same time, I was also into reffing at that time.
Well, what about, do you remember any big games that you officiated over the years?
Oh yeah, absolutely. There's one that I'll never forget. That was the night that UNH played the Olympic team in 1984 at JFK. The place was hopping. I mean, there wasn't a seat to be had. It was great. The guys were so fast. I remember one particular player was on the blue line, and these two guys are coming at me, one from UNH and a couple from the Olympic team. And I just said to myself, I'm going to get killed. Where am I going to go? There's no place for me to go. At the very last minute, they just peeled right off. And the higher level, the easier it is to do.
Is that right? Yeah, I remember that game. In fact, Dick, you know what? I was the public address announcer for that game in '84 at the JFK Coliseum. I remember it well. I remember Chris Chelios was on that team. I remember Mark Kumpel was on that team, and they both went on to great NHL careers. But that was a terrific game, and you're still very active as an off-ice official.
Well, yes, I am actually. Now that I was with the Monarchs for 9 years, and of course, my family, my daughter, and the grandkids are down in North Carolina. So, my wife, the boss in the house, wanted to be with the grandkids. So, we purchased a home down there, and I'm down there in the wintertime. And there's an arena about 2 miles from my daughter's house where my two grandkids play. I coach down there, so I'm on the ice more down there than I am up here. And I also got in with the new Charlotte Checkers, the AHL. They used to be the Albany River Rats, and they moved on to Charlotte this year. So I got in with them, and it was kind of funny. I wasn't exactly sure who I should be contacting to try to get in with them, but when I finally did, I sent them a hockey resume, and I got a call back from the referee in chief, and he said, Dick, he said, we'd love to have you. We love to have someone who knows hockey down here.
There may not be that many down in North Carolina.
Not as many as up here, believe me.
That's for sure. Well, Dick Terrio, we congratulate you. You're a terrific guy and a great addition to the New Hampshire Legends of Hockey.
Well, I'm glad to be with everybody and with you, Ken. And again, I didn't realize that you had done the game, the UNH game in '84. I had forgotten all that.
It was a great memory for both of us, I guess.
At my age, we forget a lot of things.
I understand that. Thanks, Dick.
Thank you.
Joining me, Ann Field and her daughter Alice. Ann is the daughter of Ingie Arnold, and Alice is Ingie's granddaughter. And Ingie Arnold served many, many years in Concord Youth Hockey, was one of the founding fathers of Concord Youth Hockey, and Ann, I'm sure, spent many, many hours at rinks.
Yes, I did. My mother was a hockey widow, and I was a hockey orphan.
But I bet you enjoyed it.
We did. We used to go, after a while, we used to go to all the games that he was coaching and reffing, and it was fun. It was fun.
Well, absolutely, and it shows a lot of dedication to. I know it takes a lot of hours to organize teams and leagues and that sort of thing, and I'm sure that your dad was very, very busy in doing that.
Oh, he was. He was constantly doing something with hockey and going to all the Bowdoin hockey games, and he was very dedicated to the sport.
Is that where he went, Bowdoin?
He went to Bowdoin undergraduate and Yale graduate school.
Ah, very nice. Now, Alice, what about you? Did you play hockey at all, or do you still play hockey?
I never played hockey. I started skating when I was 2. Grandpa got me skates, obviously, for Christmas, but I did the running side of his legacy. So.
Now, what are some of your fondest memories of your grandfather?
Probably driving up to Bowdoin, going to hockey games. So, yeah.
Have you always been a hockey fan?
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
Hard not to be.
It is, and it's amazing now how many girls, how many young women are playing the sport and involved in youth hockey.
I think it's great. And get more girls and young ladies out there.
Absolutely so, and of course the facilities. He was involved, I believe. Back a number of years ago, right. And the facilities at that time weren't quite as good as they are today.
No, he started out in New Hampshire playing on the Turkey Pond at St. Paul School when it was all outdoors.
And there's a historic location right there.
Yes, it is. Yep. But we went out there many times skating with at St. Paul's with Dad, and it was great. It was fun, and that's the way it was in the old days in the 60s.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's believed to be where hockey was first played in this country.
Absolutely, yep, great history there.
Oh, no question about it. Alice, how would you like your grandfather to be remembered?
I think this is a great thing for him. He loved it. Hockey was his life. He played hockey till he was 72, until the doctors told him he couldn't. So, he would drive hours to go to Bowdoin hockey games, always go to the Everett Arena for games, youth hockey. I think this is awesome. This is perfect for him.
Yep,
he would have enjoyed this day?
Yeah.
Yes. He'd be so proud and honored and excited.
Well, that is fabulous. I wish he could have been here. Ann Field and Alice, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you very much.
Joining me, legend of hockey, Seaver Peters, former athletic director at Dartmouth, and also a native of my hometown, Melrose, Massachusetts.
Coincidence, huh?
How about that, huh? Who knew? Seaver Peters played hockey at Melrose High School. Tell us about your experience at what they used to call Hockey Town, USA.
They still call it that?
Yeah. I do.
We had a great year. My junior year at Melrose, Arlington won everything. I mean by that, GBI, States, and New England. We're the only team to beat them. The next year, we won it all, and we were the only team to beat. They were the only team we lost to. I have to admit we lost because a couple of our players were kicked out for a game and one game in the balance. But so we won it all, and it was just a great thrill. That's the 49-50 team, coached by Henry Hughes, a Dartmouth guy, and my sophomore year, Charlie Holt, who I'm sure you know, or know of anyway, was our coach. So we had a great Dartmouth influence, and probably that's the reason I ended up at Dartmouth.
Yeah, and I remember Henry Hughes as well as Charlie Holt. I sure do. Absolutely coached hockey and baseball at Melrose High for many, many years. And what? Yeah. Oh, without question. What led you to Dartmouth?
Well, my father went there. That's number one. And hockey and Dartmouth. Well, there's a great tradition at Dartmouth with hockey players, and they go way, way back. 20s, I think, 30s. Miles Lane. People like that, so that was part of it. I always wanted to go there, and Eddie Jeremiah was a coach. Sent me a couple of letters, and that's all it took. So probably because of hockey is the reason I'm sure it helped me get in anyway. And I had a wonderful 4 years at Dartmouth, and got out in '54, went back in, would you believe, '59, and been in that area ever since. Worked until '83 as director of athletics, and then went into the investment business. So it's been great. I love Dartmouth too. So,
well, one of your legacies at Dartmouth is the formation of the women's hockey program there.
Oh yes, indeed. You know, the first women's game I went to, I remember coming home after work and said to my wife, "Let's go to the women's game." First year, and I went to the arena to see it, and I was staggered by it. I said to my wife, "My gosh, my son's squirt team would beat them," and they would have. And I don't mean that as a criticism. Hockey for women was in its youth, and they've come along. It's become I really mean a great, great game. Some advantages over the men's program. Not quite as, men tend to get a little chippy. There isn't much body work. No, the checking is not allowed, as a matter of fact. But so it's a good game, and women are very, very competitive, and it means just as much to women as it does to men. So that tells a story.
No, without question. A lot of great female hockey players from the state of New Hampshire. Think of Tara Mounsey and Katie King and so many others and so many.
Mounsey, the gal who went to Brown?
Yes. Yeah.
Concord?
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. She's a legend, and justifiably so. She's a great player. But women's hockey, in a relatively short amount of time, has come a long, long way.
And deservedly so. We've got a wonderful coach, Mark Hudak, and we've had a great tradition. Matter of fact, UNH coach is a Dartmouth women's coach, McCloskey. I've lost his first name for the moment, but a great guy, and we hope he'll stay at Dartmouth, but he got the bug to be a head coach, and can't blame him for that.
Not at all. Well, Steve Peters, congratulations to you. You've meant a lot to the state in athletics over the years, and it's great to have you as a member of New Hampshire Legends of Hockey.
My pleasure. Thanks so much.
We have yet another Berlin legend of hockey, and that's Norman Panett, but better known to most people as Fat. That's F-A-T. How did you get that nickname?
Well, there was a local sports writer, Leo Kluche. He used to write for the Berlin Reporter. He later was the sports writer for the Manchester Union. And when I got my goalie equipment on, I was kind of on the rotund side, so he said, "Do you mind if we call you Fat?" And I said, "No." And everybody in Berlin knows me as Fat Panett.
Leave it to Leo, huh?
Yes.
Jeez, that wasn't very nice, but you seem like a jovial sort, so I guess it didn't bother you, huh?
No, it didn't bother me at all. No.
And that was back in the late 40s. Goalie equipment has changed a little bit over the years.
It does. Yeah. No helmets, even the pads weren't like they are today. And the gloves were much smaller. So, but
did you wear a mask back then?
Never wore a mask, and I still have all my teeth.
That's amazing. And no real visible scars or anything, huh?
Scars. I got to work with a lot.
I guess so. But you had a great career back in Berlin. You still live in Berlin?
No, I live in Florida now.
Ah, good for you. Good for you.
25 years. So, but I spend the summers in Canada with my friend.
Yeah, terrific. Yeah. Terrific. And tell us about those great Berlin Maroon teams back in the late 40s.
Well, I'll tell you, the reason I'm here is because I had so many good players. Barney, Leo Vaillancourt. I played with a lot of great hockey players. Terrio, Val Albert. I think they're the reason I'm here today. But I think I helped a little bit also.
Oh, I think so. You're a legend, Fat. You're a legend. Did you have any idols, any goaltending idols when you were growing up?
Well, when I first started to play, I remember Tiny Thompson was the goalie for the Bruins, and I thought, there's nobody in it as good as he is. So, I of course, I always thought all the goalies were great. So. So,
Did you ever play any other position?
well, when I was real young, I used to play forward, but I was very competitive. And one day we were playing, and the other team, everything they shot went into the goal. And finally, I said to the goalie, "Get out of there." So I played goalie, and I stayed there ever since.
And that was it. The rest, as they say, is history.
Yes.
Very good. So, what did you do up in Berlin? What was your profession?
I worked for a telephone company for 37 years. So
Very good.
for my bell.
Retired a couple of years ago?
Well, I've been retired 27 years. I'm going to be 90 next August.
Well, you do exceptionally well. You look to be in great shape, even though Leo Cloutier called you fat many years ago. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I've changed much, really.
Very good. Well, Norman Fat Panette, we appreciate you being with us, and congratulations.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
And joining us, New Hampshire legend of hockey, Eric Royal, out of Spalding High School in Rochester. State champs back in 1990. I was there at that game. I remember it, but I'm sure you remember it more than I do. What can you tell us about it?
That whole tournament was a fantastic experience. Got to go through Concord and Nashua and finally beat Trinity in the state championship game. It was a battle right to the end, and we were able to pull it out.
And tell us about your role in that game.
Well, that game was, there were a lot of tired bodies there. We had back and forth a good battle with Trinity, and we were able to finally put one in at the end there in double overtime, but it was an entire team effort and a great job.
Yeah, terrific hockey game it was. And then on to the University of New Hampshire and a 4-year career there. Tell us about that.
Yeah, it was a great experience. I got to play for Coach Humilli. We did a lot of wonderful things there. Got to play in Manchester our senior year while the Whittemore Center was being built, but we had a lot of good times. Made the NCAA tournament 3 out of 4 years and got to play with a lot of great players there as well.
Who were some of the players you played with at UNH?
Line mates were Eric Flinton for 3 years, Jason Dexter for a couple of years, Mark Mowers, Rob Donovan, Eric Boganicki. We had a lot of good players there. We weren't quite at the level that they've gotten to, being national contenders and Hockey East champions and so on and so forth. But there were a lot of great players there that helped build that program and take it to where it is now.
But it was always lively at Snively, no doubt about that.
It was. That was a remarkable place to play. The fans were terrific. It was just an exceptional arena. Sorry to see it go, but the Whittemore's the next step, and it's a wonderful place to play there now as well.
Without a doubt. Bring us up to date on what you've been doing over the years. I know you went on to play professionally for a few seasons. Tell us about that experience.
Yeah, after I graduated from UNH, I went out to Edmonton to their rookie camp and then kicked around in the minor league system in the East Coast League for a few years, played in England for a year, and then decided that it was time to start the 9-to-5 grind, and been a working stiff for the last several years. I work for a company out of Dover called Formax, and I've been the coach of Marshwood Trape Hockey for the last 6 years.
Very good, and so you stay active in the game.
I do, yes. I don't get out to play much anymore, but coaching the kids is a tremendous experience. They're all good kids. They work hard, and I have a lot of fun doing it.
Eric Royal out of Spalding High School in Rochester and the University of New Hampshire, now a New Hampshire legend of hockey, and we congratulate you.
Thank you very much.
We welcome New Hampshire legend of hockey, Lee Blossom, and it's a special thrill for me to be going in the same day as you, Lee. We worked together many games in Concord over the years, so congratulations to you.
Thank you very much, Ken, and I certainly feel the same way about you. It's a special day, one that certainly very humbled by and very appreciative for, and I'm looking forward to seeing all the hockey people we'll see today, and certainly very honored with today.
Tell us about your early hockey career playing at Concord and at St. Paul's.
Yeah, as a young, things have sort of changed at St. Paul's. They used to have a 7th and 8th grade at St. Paul's, so I was a day student as a 7th and 8th grader at St. Paul's, and then a boarding student after that, and what a great way to spend your teenage years at a fabulous school like that. And then I transferred to Concord High my senior year, and it was a dream come true, to be honest with you. Was able to really really be welcomed and embraced by a lot of the guys I grew up with in Concord and be a part of the high school hockey, if you will, that I had always kind of missed playing at St. Paul's, wondering what that was like, playing at the Everett Arena and so forth. And so it was a lot of fun. It was a transition over. Coach Ryerson and the guys were tremendous. And, of course, we had a very good year, and we were able to win Concord's first state championship.
And then after that, it was on to a fine career at Boston College.
Yes, that was, again, I had a lot of lucky things happen to me along the way. I guess you have to sometimes to get the breaks. But Coach Len Siglarski, when he recruited me and brought me into Boston College, it was a dream come true. I really hadn't had a whole heck of a lot of offers or anyone really jumped to the forefront until Lenny came on the scene, and he was watching me when I was playing juniors in Fitchburg with the Wallopers, and within 4 or 5 games he offered me a scholarship, and I went to Boston College, and it's absolutely the highlight of my hockey career.
What was it that Coach Siglarski saw in you, Lee Blossom?
Well, he just kept telling me to skate and shoot, so it must have been that. I like to get the puck and go, and and make things happen offensively. Always had to learn, especially going to Division I, to hone up your defensive skills, because there were guys on the other side that were as good as you were and would get the puck and go as well. So I think when Coach first saw me play in Fitchburg, it was for my offensive skills and just being able to skate with the puck, move the puck around, and just be an offensive threat. I enjoyed that. It seemed to appeal to him, and he then, set me up at BC in similar fashion. So it was really great to play for Lenny. He gave you the freedom to create, but yet, be disciplined and play a solid game, and it fit perfectly, and I enjoyed it.
And then after Boston College, where you had some great seasons and some great memories, you had an opportunity to play professionally.
Yes, that was a lot of fun. I mean, it was a challenge. Back in the 80s, as we all know, the Miracle on Ice was in 1980. So during the 80s, Americans still weren't held to the level I think they deserved. There were a lot of good American hockey players, but it was tough. It was tough. So it's almost like you'd go to training camp and you knew you immediately were going to be sent down to sort of prove yourself, if you will. So I 3.5 years of that. It was enjoyable. A couple of training camps with Pittsburgh Penguins. Met a lot of great teammates, but played in the minors and gave it my best shot. But after a little bit, I think you start getting into your late 20s. I had a degree from Boston College. I wanted to get on with my business career and sort of start your next step, if you would. So I think I got out at the right time, but certainly very, very glad that I decided to pursue that path out of school.
Bring us up to date. What have you been doing since your pro hockey career?
Well, I live in Boston. I live in the north end of the city. So it's a very fun place. A lot of nice Italian restaurants around. But right now I'm directing sales for a medical research company, which is really a new challenge for me, and I really enjoy challenges like this. The company I had worked for before in the childcare industry, corporate childcare, like as a benefit to employees. So this is sort of a transition over, but the benefit is medical information and resources to allow employees to make better decisions about their health, to know what their treatment options, know what their hospital options are, being able to navigate the healthcare system a lot better than you can without any knowledge. So it's an innovative company, and I was lucky to be asked to come on board, and I'm about a year into that now. So it's going very well, and I'm happy.
Lee Blossom, Concord native, now living in Boston. We congratulate you.
Thank you very much, Ken, and congratulations to you as well.
Thank you. A new member of the New Hampshire Legends of Hockey is the late Daniel Stuckey, and we're joined by family members, his widow Madeline and sons Mark and Peter Stuckey. And Madeline, would Daniel have been thrilled on a day like this?
He certainly would have been, yes. And it's a very exciting one for me, too, and my boys.
Played at Phillips Exeter Academy and Princeton, a great all-around athlete.
Yes, he was. And, well, the main thing, I did see a lot of hockey games.
I'll bet you did.
We had 3 boys, and I was afraid that one of them might turn out to be a violinist, which would have been all right, but Fortunately, all three of them were hockey fans.
No violinists among them, huh?
And I decided I wouldn't go any further for a girl because I'd only end up with a football team. And I thought 3 was enough.
What kind of an impact did your dad have on your athletic career?
Well, obviously, I think quite a bit. I grew up, I was the youngest, and we played all sorts of sports, not just hockey, but I think hockey was always our favorite. So I was the youngest and I had to try to compete with my bigger siblings. And
was hockey your favorite sport?
Yeah, it always was.
But you played many.
Yeah, as a kid, you played baseball, football, golf, tennis, whatever.
What are you up to now?
I teach golf. And I coach hockey.
That's very good. In the U.S.?
No, in Europe. I live in Europe. I've been living in Europe for 35 years. So.
Very good. How about the impact that your dad had on your career?
Well, I'm still playing. So.
Still playing? What are you playing?
Well, the old timers hockey. What else? And a little golf.
A little golf as well. That never hurts. Where are you living?
I live in Portland, Maine.
Very good. Home of the Pirates. We don't like to talk about them too much, but it's okay. But tell us how your father would have felt about this day.
Well, he was a pretty quiet guy, but I think he would have been bursting with pride.
What do you remember most about your dad?
What do I remember most?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a hard question. Yeah, hockey and golf were 2 big parts of his life, and they're big parts of my life. So I think he passed that on to me for sure.
So he's provided quite a legacy.
Sure did. He sure did. And I feel very proud. My third son, my middle son, also played hockey, and unfortunately he can't be here today. He'd like to be. But I'm very happy to have these 2.
Very good. Well, it's a proud moment for all of you, I'm sure. The widow of Daniel K. Stuckey, Madeline, along with sons Mark and Peter. He had a tremendous career at Phillips Exeter and went on to Princeton, and a very proud day for the whole family.
Am I going to tell one more story?
Sure you are. Go ahead. You go ahead.
Well, Dan was coaching the St. Paul's school team, and Peter, the oldest, was playing on the Exeter varsity team. And the first time they played against each other in the Exeter rink, I was very nervous about it because Dan wanted to win so badly, beat Exeter, where after all he went and his son was on the team. And I said to him, I don't understand why you want to beat them so badly. Why couldn't you have a tie? And he said to me, oh my God, Madeline, that would be worse than a loss.
Well, that's a great story. Again, congratulations, and we remember Daniel very, very much on this day.
Thank you. Well, we're very happy to be here. Thank you. Great.
I'd like to welcome a new member to the New Hampshire Legends of Hockey and overdue selection, Ken Kale, media presentation this year. Congratulations. It's got to be an exciting day for you.
Bob, it is, no question. For somebody who never played a game of organized hockey in his life, just skated on Elk Pond and Melrose, that is a tremendous thrill. It's very humbling to be in the same number as these great inductees today.
In this business, you have to start out someplace, and in looking into your background, Bob Wilson was a great influence on you starting out. Talk a little bit about that.
Oh, it truly was. He allowed me to, at a very young age, keep statistics for him for Boston Braves broadcasts in the American Hockey League, then later on the Bruins, and I had a chance to sit next to Bob for many, many broadcasts that he did over the years, and what a great influence he had on my career. He taught me how to, call the hockey fights very well, and that's probably my strong suit. But Bob was a tremendous influence in my young career as a broadcaster.
What was the most important thing you learned? We all learn from mentors. What was the most important thing you learned from him?
Well, I think, you can't stay overly excited all the time. You know, you try to keep things on an even keel and build kind of a momentum as the broadcast goes along, and build up to a crescendo when you think something big is going to happen. If you stay, if you're excited all the time, then I think people kind of tune out. But if you kind of build up the excitement and reach that peak and that crescendo when your team scores, then I think that's very important. Bob always taught me the great score call, so he was a great impact, a great guy to be around, and I thank him for all he's done for me.
Biggest positive moment, most exciting game you ever did?
You know what? It's funny because it was a 2-2 tie, actually, in St. John, New Brunswick. First year of the Monarchs and the St. John Flames. Second game for Ted Donato as a member of the Manchester Monarchs. He scored the tying goal with 0.2 of a second remaining in regulation. And I say it was a big game. The Monarchs have been on a losing streak. Ted Donato came to that team, was such a positive influence on that club, on and off the ice. It was a huge turning point in Monarchs history.
Now I got to ask you the obvious question. We've all had bloopers in this business. Your biggest blooper?
Well, you do the regular, you misidentify players for one reason or another all the time. One that I've repeated. I mean, you think I would learn over the years, but because I do baseball in the summer as well, you run down the statistics before the game, and there have been a number of times, Bob, when I've said, and this goalie has an ERA of 2.67, rather than a goals against average, and I've done that on any number of occasions over the years.
Well, a media representative, certainly selected as a representative of the media to be a New Hampshire Legend of Hockey, overdue selection. And Ken, I want to congratulate you very much. You didn't have very many bloopers over your career. Terrific career.
One blooper was not working with you, Bob, but maybe we can rectify that.
We'll correct that sometime. Thanks very much, Ken.
Me at the New Hampshire Legends of Hockey banquet, former Boston College coach Len Siglarski, who was there 20 years at the Heights, and he is the man that somehow, some way, discovered one of our inductees today, Lee Blossom. And Len, a pleasure to have you with us today. And what can you tell us? How did you discover Lee?
Well, I was out recruiting one night, and it was really one day on a Sunday up in Fitchburg. It was the Junior A League at that time. He just begun the New England Juniors at that time, and I saw the game, and I liked what I saw. And I don't remember whether he got 4 goals or 5 goals, but of course that aroused my attention pretty quickly, and what have you. Then I saw him play the second time a few weeks later, and he showed me enough so that I felt that he could play for us. And as it turned out, he came to BC, and we had a nice relationship, which we still have to this day.
Well, that is terrific. And you were there from 72 to 92 at Boston College, and had tremendous success. What were some of your great thrills at Boston College?
Oh golly, there are so many of them, and now that I've been retired for 18 years, you can't forget some of the great times. Matter of fact, as we came into the hall tonight, I met referees that did some of our games, and some of the other people that had played against us, say when we were growing up, and it was just like being home. And I know what a great reputation. I remember when I just before I went to Clarkson, and the kids were playing for, fellas like Butch Songen and fellas that I played with in school. To be able to go to Berlin, New Hampshire, or different places in New Hampshire, that was really a nice thing. I couldn't go because we had a family at that time, but I had to bail out of it. But we're still talking to as I came into the hall, just the names of the people that I knew and that the players knew. So it was really interesting.
Well, hockey is kind of a religion here in New Hampshire, especially up in the Berlin area.
Oh yeah. In high school, we never played against when I played at Walpole High School, but we weren't in a position at that time to do any traveling with. But the names and when you hear Berlin, you know that and I know a lot of guys that came up here to just sort of more or less in the senior leagues, and they came back with some great stories. I can tell you that. So it was good.
Well, without question. Who are some of the greats that you had at Boston College over the years?
Oh boy. Well, we've had so many. Of course, the kids who turned pro while I was there. Brian Leach came in. He only stayed with us 1 year, but he was an outstanding kid and a great hockey player. As it turned out, we had Joey Mullen, who came from New York City and right out of Hell's Kitchen.
And his son is playing for the Manchester Monarchs right now.
Is he really?
Yeah, Patrick, yeah.
I didn't know that. Oh, that's great. Because Joe, matter of fact, I went down to New York City to see him play. I had been told by one of the other coaches in the Hockey East that I should take a look at him. When I went down there, and boy, I'll tell you, he put about 4 or 5 goals in, but anyway, he turned out to be a great player. But Joe was a tremendous athlete, not only as a hockey player, but as a softball player. He was a good golfer, the whole bit. But the first time that I saw Joe play was down in the city. It was on a Thursday afternoon, and he was on a pair of rollerblades. And,
Yeah.
and I saw him playing a game in the backyard of all the tall buildings or what have you. And then at night I saw him play a hockey game. No, he was a great kid right from the very start. But those are two of the real superstars, I would say. And of course, Joe, with all the records that he broke, as an American League player and then at the NHL. But Brian Leach, he was a great kid. But we've had got a whole bunch of them. And in recent years, there are more and more kids from BC because of the opportunity for the kids to play junior A hockey now. And in the years that I'm talking about, the pros really didn't have much interest in the college kids, and they thought they just needed more experience. So now with the junior A kids and the opportunity for those kids to play 40, 50 games a year and practice, it really has made all the difference in the world. I happened to see the BC BU game last night. Just a great hockey game, and boy, I'll tell you, you could sit through that stuff every single day. And the kids are, they're qualified in the NHL and in the other minor pro leagues, and the kids have just an opportunity to play, and it's really turned out great for these kids.
Coach Zaglarski, pleasure to have you with us today. You've meant a lot to New England college hockey and college hockey in general over the years, and thank you very much for attending here and honoring Lee Blossom.
Yeah, well, it's a pleasure. I've known Lee a long time, and we're still friends, and so I'm glad to see. This is quite a gathering. When I got up this morning, I said to my son who drove me up, I said, I wonder how many people are going to be here, how many inductees. Well, we came into the front door and about 5, a couple of referees that we knew and whatever. So then I looked in the dining room here, and this is amazing. It's wonderful. So.
Our guest is Leo Callahan, who has been kind enough over the years to do the biographies for the Legends of Hockey Luncheon. And Leo, first of all, you've done a great job. We're going to miss your support and your efforts, but it has to have been a lot of fun researching all the information on these guys.
It's always a joy to hear a story, and everybody is unique and has a unique story to tell. And this year was no exception. Some of the best stories, one came from Siva Peters and one came from Eric Royal, and everybody had a neat story to tell.
Your history in hockey is not just writing. You've had an active coaching history and goes back a long time. When did you start out?
Well, I grew up in Winchester, Massachusetts, and played hockey at Winchester High School, and I have to interject, we won a state title in 1955 as the only independent team ever to win a Massachusetts state title. And I found my way via the journalistic world up to Concord, New Hampshire to work with UPI Wire Service. And I ultimately got involved as a head coach of the first New England college hockey team. Then you and I shared ice at Everett Arena in Concord. You had the Pee Wee team, I had the Bantam travel team. And it's just gone on and on and on. And today I live over in Dover. The last 11 years I've been in Dover, and I open the rink every morning at 4:45, and I drive the Zamboni, and I'm still in touch.
And you see inductee from this year, Eric Royal, coaching the Marshwood team. Meet you every morning.
Every morning, and as a matter of fact, the interview that I did with Eric was done right there in the rink after he got off the ice for one of those practices. So
Too bad Eric doesn't have a few players like himself over there. He'd have a little more success.
Unfortunately, a little short-handed this year. It's he doesn't have a lot of hockey players to draw from, so I think he has maybe 11 skaters and an abundance of goaltenders. I see 3 kids out there with pads on every morning. So,
Leo, thanks very much. And on behalf of the Legends of Hockey, I want to thank you very much for all of your efforts on our behalf.
it's been my pleasure. Always a pleasure. Thank you, Robert.
Leo Callahan's been our guest. New Hampshire Legend of Hockey inductee from Nashville High School, University of Maine. And Jack, it seems like we were doing these interviews in Nesson not too very many years ago, but congratulations.
Thank you very much. Thank you. It's a tremendous honor, and I'm completely humbled by the whole situation.
When you grew up in the state of New Hampshire, in Nashville, what were your goals as a young hockey player growing up? What did you think you'd be able to achieve?
Well, coming out of the Nashville program, we had some good teams there, so it was easier to showcase what we had as far as talent and stuff. But being from the New England area, everybody wanted to play in Hockey East, and ultimately that was my goal. And in a roundabout way, that's how it turned out. I ended up going up to Maine, and Grant Stanbrook came down and saw him. He liked what he saw, and he gave me a chance.
When you look back at your experience at Nashville High School, play with great players and great state championship wins.
Yeah, we had a couple there. There was one the year before I started, and then my freshman year. We had some tremendous teams there. We had our older classes before us were really good, and we ended up having 2 or 3 decent lines that could play. And really, in the state, if you could field 2 or 3 good lines, you have a good chance of winning.
Talking about great lines, Grant Sandberg brought you up to Maine. You had a chance to play for Sean Walsh, and boy, did you play with some great players there.
We had it was really a roster of who's who. You know, we had some tremendous hockey players from the Koreas to the Montgomerys to the Snows to the Imes. I mean, you can go right down the list. All 4 years, we had some tremendous players, and again, like this is here today, it was an honor to be up there in that program.
Memories of Sean Walsh.
Sean was the final product, and there was a lot of people that put some ingredients in there with Grant Stanbrook and Red Gendron, and Sean he did what he had to do to get the most out of everybody, and he used everybody to their strengths. And we had some good players that didn't play in games. My freshman year, boy, I tell you, we had 3 lines that probably could have been a top 2 line on any team in Hockey East. So it was a good program there. He really built it up strong, and they're coming back, and hopefully they can get back to where they were.
Fondest memory as a hockey player?
Oh, the fondest memory as a hockey player. Obviously, the championship in Maine was pretty fun, and even the senior year when we lost to BU was pretty fun because when you play that many games with the same group of guys, it's again, like anything else, it's an honor to play in that championship game.
Jack, thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Bob.
New Hampshire Legend of Hockey from Nashua, Jack Redrick. One of the founding fathers of the New Hampshire Legends of Hockey back a few years ago, Jeff Eisenberg. And Jeff, it doesn't seem like that long ago that this organization just began with just a few folks.
And I have not been called founding father very often in my life, so that's all right. It feels all right. It seems like yesterday, but it's been a great run, and Dickie Boucher and me and Francois Solis at the time, who was running Franco-American Center. And we had lunch, and this is what it turned into. And it's just, you get such dedicated, passionate people involved, and this is what happens.
Tell me what inspired this, because obviously it came from an idea.
Well, when I came to Manchester to run the Monarchs, I figured it would be fairly logical to me that I would want to have lunch with the Franco-American Center, the people over there. That kind of made fundamental sense to me. So I met Francoise, who was executive director at the time, and then she introduced me to Dick, who was working for ACA, which is an insurance company located in that building. And we just started chatting, and it just came out of the conversation that it seemed to me that there was such a heritage of great hockey here in the state. And I was new to the state, but it just seemed to me that they deserved to be honored. And we just started to talk, and it just caught on like that.
One of the things that has always amazed me and impressed me about this organization, there's a great history in the state, obviously, but never connected. And this organization has been a connector between Berlin and Manchester and Concord and Hanover and all the other places to play.
Yeah, it really has. The first time that I really realized how magical this group of people was when we had our first luncheon. We're having our, what is this, the 9th or something like that now. And we had it at the back room, and we packed in. We packed the room. It was just, I couldn't get anybody more people in that room, and I saw how special it was for all these people to get together, because they don't, you know how life is. You run around, you don't get to connect with these people that are a big part of your life. So I began to realize that day when I saw the magic in that room that we could be a connector for everyone.
The interesting thing is, the more you worked in Manchester with our hockey programs and hockey folks here, the more you realize that all roads led back to Berlin.
I have been told, you know, and I visited Berlin early on, and since I've been, you know, several times. But I remember my first trip up there, and it's not really. I mean, it's 2.5 hours, but in New Hampshire, that's a big deal. Where I grew up, you know, that was a trip to the grocery store. It's really not that far, but and the true love they have for the game, it is the cradle of hockey, I think, in the, you know, the country, in my book. But and I was told that everyone who lives in Manchester has a relative who lives in Berlin, and I think that's true. I think it's true.
Not with the Manchester Monarchs anymore. Have gone off on your own. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing.
Well, I bought an advertising agency. I'd been with the Monarchs since the very beginning for about 10 years, and I was ready for a new challenge, and I didn't really want to move out of New Hampshire. That's New Hampshire has that way on us, you know. It's just a great place to live, and I love it here. And my kids are still in high school and junior high, and I didn't really want to move, so I pursued another business. And it's the first time in my life I haven't been directly in sports, but it's enjoyable. So I own an advertising agency in town, and it's going well, and I'm enjoying it.
Well, good luck with your new venture, and thanks for all you've done for the New Hampshire Legends of Hockey.
And you the same, Bob. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Jeff Eisenberg's been our guest. New Hampshire Legends of Hockey are honoring this afternoon's lunch of the Manchester Monarchs. And Pierre Belanger, Pierre, you've got a good, solid group of Manchester Monarchs up here. Looks like they could go out and play right now. But could you introduce us to the guys who are up here? Somebody said no, but it looks like some of them could play right now. Anyway, tell us who's up here.
Yes, a few of us still play. Here we have Jacques Leclerc, known as Mr. Elbows. Ray Champagne, very well known, still plays every day, 7 days a week. And we have Ron Dubreuil. Ron knew his way around the net pretty good. Andre, the muscle man, Préfontaine. And then we have Tinu Saint Laurent, one of the greatest goalies that's ever played in New Hampshire hockey. And I mean that. And then we have Willie the Barber Beeble. Willie could score from sitting in the penalty box. So yes, these were the original Monarchs back in 1970, 70, 71, 72.
Yeah, tell me a little bit about your experience with the Monarchs. And I know that the team didn't last a long time, but the experience of playing in that league was really terrific.
Yes, most of us played for the old Blackhawks, which were known. Then the league wanted to reorganize itself a little bit, make it a little bit more stable. And that's when we became the Manchester Monarchs, and we played against Nashua Maple Leafs and Braintree Hawks and Framingham Picks, Concord, Budman Olympics and so forth. So it was a good league. We all had our own night to play. Every town had their own night to play, and we had a good time.
Your best memory about playing with these guys?
Well, typical hockey, the locker rooms situations when the pref used to be pretty innovative, and just camaraderie. We'd go out after games. We had our own couple clubs. We all had our own mugs and everything else, and the wives were there, girlfriends, and traveling together was quite some experiences.
Well, congratulations to the Manchester Monarchs. Congratulations on your being honored by the Legends of Hockey. It was a great time in New Hampshire hockey, and memories make it all worthwhile. Thanks very much. Next year, the New Hampshire Legends of Hockey will be honoring the Great Sacred Heart program from Concord, New Hampshire. And as our guest this afternoon, we have Pike Colgan and Barney Colgan, who were associated with that Great Sacred Heart team. And Pike, tell me a little bit about how you got started with Sacred Heart.
Well, I was just a young fella in high school at the time. Myself and Tom Champagne, who isn't here right now, were playing for both Concord High, and I was the youngest person to play on the Sacred Heart Hockey Club, and we had, as far as Tommy and I are concerned, we learned a lot of hockey because we played with elderly players and college players. So it made us, a lot better, and we had an awfully good team. We'd go travel New England from Berlin down to Massachusetts.
The older guys help you play better.
Oh my! They taught us what to do, but we could skate too.
Oh yeah, I bet you could. Now, Barney, where did you play most of your games?
Well, I only played for Sacred Heart, and that's after I returned from the service. I earned my letter shoveling. In those days, you had to take your shovel as well as your hockey stick to the rink. We never played indoors like they do now.
Where were the games?
They were in the back of the church or the school on Pleasant Street.
Now, those of us who know Concord, when you look at Sacred Heart Church, is that the big parking lot? Is that where the games were?
Right, center ice is the parking lot, yeah.
Who were some of the players that you remember playing against that folks might remember?
Oh, what? We played against the United States Olympics. I don't know all the names. It was back in 1952, maybe.
Who are some of the great players you played with?
Dan Stuckey, Doc Meacham, Morris Kuchar, Ted Rice. We had quite a few.
When you look at that Everett Arena now, and you look at it today, I bet you would have liked to have that to play on when you were growing up.
Oh, that's wonderful, isn't it? They had perfect ice. We had to depend on the weather, and if it was sunny those days, the edges were pretty soft.
Well, next year will be a big year for Sacred Heart, and we look forward to honoring you guys and your teammates next season.
Yes, we appreciate it very, very much.
Very thoughtful.
And we thank the legends of hockey for considering us.
Well, you guys are legends.